Good afternoon, Evan. How are you today, kid?
Oh, I've already played in the snow 5 times already, Craig. 5 times.
But you guys better have like an entire family of snowmen built and ready to rock and roll.
That's what
Do you
we're working
not?
on. We've already, I built one snowman and then it fell apart already because it's the snow is too light. So it's been mostly running, falling, jumping, your traditional things you do in the snow with a 4-year-old. That's where
Even with the 40-mile-per-hour winds, how many times did he get knocked over? How many times did you get knocked over?
I got knocked over 3 times. He's been knocked over 7 times. I got to admit, as long as you're not on the road, it's a lot of fun. I love the snow, man. I may be one of the few, but I love it.
No, we all love it until we have to deal with the ramifications of it. I got up at 6:30 this morning. I went outside. I figured, all right, I'm going to be a tough guy. I'm going to do a little snow plowing.
Yeah.
And I did a little snow plowing. And with the wind, I mean, it's right back in your face. It's the snow today was kind of the way Yankee fans are to Met fans, right in your face. Giant fans are to Jet fans, right in your face. And you very loud, obnoxious 3 Net fans are to some Knicks fans. But I guess the reverse is true historically. So
Yeah.
I took a facial beating, and then I just said the hell with it. And I look outside an hour ago. It's like I never even snowplowed.
Well, that's why you made
Stupid.
a big mistake. Why would anybody begin the process of plowing or shoveling or doing anything when within 35 seconds the snow is going to replace whatever you just did? You have to wait for this monster to end. And I don't know when it's going to end. I guess tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, whenever the heck it ends. That's when you begin digging out. You do it now, you get an exercise in, Craig, but you're basically wasting your time.
No, it's a waste of gasoline, a waste of time, a waste of oil, a waste of clothes. Then you come in the house, you reek like gasoline, and that usually doesn't go over well with the people I live with, at least. Ew, you smell, take off your clothes, which is something I've longed to hear my entire life. And this morning... I hear it, and it's not because anything good's going to come at the end of it. You'll hop in the shower, the whole bit. So we're with you if you're experiencing, however you're experiencing it. I don't care where you live. We're all knee-deep in it, but lots of stuff over the weekend. Let's start with low-hanging fruit, and that to me is Stafford. And we talked Friday about would the Rams make an offer to try to get Deshaun Watsons. Like, see if someone was silly enough to take the Jared Goff contract. Then we find out they went to the Green Bay Packers first looking for Aaron Rodgers, so they were whale hunting. And here's the problem with that deal. Does it impact the New York Giants? Nope. Does it impact the Jets today? Nope. But the reality is that it does, because what they gave up to get Matthew Stafford now sets the bar for what you got to give up to get Deshaun Watson. And unless you're giving up, 5 first-round picks and Sam and who knows who else, I just don't think the Jets are in the game anymore.
All right. I think you're completely wrong, but I'll tell you why. All right. And maybe being naive. Again, maybe I'm being hopeful. I don't believe all first-round picks are created equal. The New York Jets pick number 2 in the NFL draft. Where are the LA Rams picking that they sent to the Detroit Lions? They're picking a probably pick late in the first round.
Right.
And the Rams have made a habit of this. They don't really care about first-round picks. And I'm not necessarily saying they're wrong over the years with the way they've traded it. So the Jets have a pick that most teams can't offer. Obviously, the Dolphins can because they pick 3rd. So all first-round picks are not created equal. Would you agree, Craig, that picking number 2 overall is not just better than a late first-round pick, but it's significantly better than a late first-round pick?
Yeah, and I'm saying that
Okay.
assuming I've got confidence of people picking. But, of course, if I'm picking 2nd, you're picking 19th.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know there's some weird – there is a guy out there, one of these, like, mathematical genius-type guys.
Yes.
Who they put some type of point value.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh,
On
absolutely,
picks.
yes.
Right, so that way when you make a trade – and they did it really as a service to general managers. I think every league does it now other than Major League Baseball, because the draft is so long and it's so unpredictable, and typically guys aren't going to be ready for a couple of years. And they try to figure out what's like value. If 5 apples is worth 2 oranges, is worth 4 plums, is worth, and on and on and on. So I don't know how you value it, but clearly number 2 overall is always better than 18.
And that's the advantage the Jets still have. And look, that advantage eventually goes away. See, the concern is I think the Texans eventually trade Deshaun Watson, but they may stare him down a little bit. And if they stare him down past the NFL draft, and now you're looking at draft picks for next year and the year after's draft, obviously that changes because you don't know where the Jets or any other team are going to pick. But right now, picking number 2 matters. And here's the other thing that matters. And I factor this in a little bit. I was killing Jared Goff on Friday. I know you thought I was too hard on him. I was making fun of him for having a bad thumb and all that. Jared Goff's got a god-awful contract. You don't think a part of the compensation the Detroit Lions got was to take back that brutal contract?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Of course, yeah.
So factor that in. Factor it all in, baby.
I want to wake up today and be in a good mood. I want to wake up today and let's get it on. I want Deshaun.
Yes.
I want to believe in my heart of hearts that when I see Deshaun Watson taking all the Texan stuff off of his social media, and I know that he said over the weekend, I want to stay in the AFC. I don't want to play in the NFC. And if you eliminate teams in his division, there's only a finite number of teams left. One of those teams is our beloved New York Jets. But I think what happened over the weekend was this. I had a little case of what we like to call Roberts-itis. Now, you can look it up right now on WebMD. Yeah. It is you have to really go into the weeds on it, but Roberts-itis. It's like a virus, really.
Yeah.
And what Roberts-itis is,
please explain,
is the verbal diarrhea of not thinking your team is going to get something accomplished. It comes from the Latin verbosius diarrhosius. And for anyone that has listened to WFAN over the last 14 and a half years, you may have been prone to hearing Roberts-itis, which is verbosius diarrheus. You may have heard it, frankly, when he wanted then didn't want James Harden. It's the vocal belief that my team can't do any good. Right. And that goes against everything I believe into my core. But I had it over the weekend. You rubbed off on me. You did.
Yeah, but then how come the originator of the Roberts-itis doesn't have Roberts-itis right now in this moment when it comes to Deshaun Watson? Why is that? Have I been cured?
You got cured. James Harden's the cure.
Oh, yeah.
James Harden is like Moderna.
Right.
James Harden is Johnson & Johnson.
Yeah.
James Harden proved to you that Roberts-itis can be defeated.
Well,
now I got to figure out how the heck I'm going to defeat it.
Well, it's been a process. I wouldn't just give James Harden the Pfizer treatment. I would say that it was Kevin Durant, it was Francisco Lindor, and then, I guess James Harden had something to do with it. By the way, can you not blow a 5-point lead with 12 seconds to go? But that's a story for another day.
We're going to get to that later on today. We're breaking that down blueprint style.
Why?
Because,
why do I have to relive it?
I'll tell you why. You have to relive it because people like you remind us Knicks fans of Reggie Miller in the Garden.
Oh, good.
And because you have never stopped reminding us about Reggie Miller in the Garden, and this is essentially a meaningless game in January, we are going to go step by step, 10th of second by 10th of second, and relive it frame by frame so that you can walk us through what you were thinking when it happened.
I kid you not, I didn't sleep very well last night. I kid you not, I've had a pit in my stomach ever since that game ended, and it's not healthy because that's another form of Roberts-itis. You can't be this sick over a regular season loss, and I am. Like, I have indigestion right now even thinking about it. I mean, you're giving me hives thinking about it.
Well, that's that. Then let's go over a couple other things we'll get to today. And the number, by the way, 877-337-6666. We'll get your calls coming up in a few minutes as well. And that is this nonsense. I mean, you couldn't have written this if you wanted to. You know, people don't know, or people may have forgotten for a second, that when Steve Cohen bought the Mets, he did not buy SNY. Now, Evan, do you know who owns SNY?
I think the Wilpons still own SNY.
Yes, the Wilpons still own the network that broadcasts the New York Met games.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, I am not blaming the Wilpons for this, but somebody that does work over at SNY, or let me rephrase that, someone I'm assuming that used to work over at SNY decided to have a little fun on Twitter over the weekend. Now, when you start any story with the phrase, decided to have a little fun on Twitter, you know full well that's a story that never ended well, correct?
Yes.
Here's what SNY put out. Well, here's the thing. SNY did put it out, but do I believe for a minute that SNY executives were behind it? I don't. But it did come through the official SNY Twitter handle, right?
Right, yes.
So he shows a picture of a guy trying to pick up a girl at a bar. And as if the guy is whispering in her ear some type of sweet nothing, which, by the way, from experience, never works.
Yeah.
Ask Tommy. Here's the deal. So he lost a bunch of money in a classic short squeeze. That's a stock market thing you wouldn't understand. So right out of the gate, we're sexist, right? Like, there's no way the girl in the bar could possibly understand because she's a girl. That's what they're saying, right?
Right.
Okay. So we all started harassing him on Twitter, and then we started harassing his family online too, and he had to delete his Twitter account. Now, that's it. It's a standalone.
Right.
Standalone
With the picture you mentioned of the guy whispering sweet nothings into the girl's ear.
Right. So the guy's like, hey, I'm a tough guy. I trolled a billionaire owner of the Mets, and then I trolled his family, threw a couple death threats in there because that's what we like to do these days. And I was so good at it, I made him drop his Twitter account.
Right.
Now, if that came from any other jackass on Twitter, you'd write it off as just another meathead on Twitter, and this is the problem with Twitter, anonymous trolls who can say and do anything they want with no regard for the resulting behavior, right?
Right.
But when it comes from the network that broadcasts the games, and the network is not owned by the same owner, it becomes a problem.
Yeah, you think?
And it's a problem. Now, has SNY said anything other than we were sorry?
That's what they said. They quickly came out and apologized for the tweet. I did see that. Where they said, earlier tonight, SNY posted a tweet that made light of the harassment of Steve Cohen and his family. Yeah. We apologize for the, quote, error in judgment.
Now, do you think Steve Cohen is, tail between his legs in hiding? Do you believe his family really did get threats? And do you believe that based on what we know of Steve Cohen and the TV show Billions, that he is now sitting up there like a mad scientist crafting his revenge play?
Well, first of all, I definitely think he got death threats, which is sick and sad because we know what Twitter is. I mean, I think Twitter is great. I think social media is great. But you know as well as I do that it's a cesspool at times. And considering what Steve was accused of, even though there really weren't that many facts to back it up, no, it doesn't surprise me that there probably was. So I buy the story that he gave, and I think he probably realized something that we've said and a lot of people have said, which is, what is the good of this? Like, what am I getting out of it? It's one thing when it was fun and games about the Mets and making jokes about, should I call Sandy and find out what's going on, making jokes about signing a reliever or what kind of food do you want at Citi Field. I think when he got involved in the back and forth when it came to the stock market, and look, it is serious because you do have people's livelihoods on the line. Let's face it. Sports is fun. I may take it very seriously. A lot of fans do. But if you got hosed in that whole stock market squeeze from last week, you could have lost life-changing money. And so I think it's a different animal. And listen, I think he took a step back. That's what I think happened.
Yeah, I think we talked all the time. This is why you don't get involved in Twitter that way, because you've now broken down every barrier and every buffer you've built probably for your lifetime once you became successful between you and everybody else. And as soon as you give people the opening where they can now, or they feel like they can now reach you directly, and some people did, you've changed the whole game.
Yeah.
And by the way, that game only ends one way, and it's the exact way it happened. Because now people know that they have access to your eyes and your ears, and you're going to react. And that's all that took place. Now, I believe the Mets are setting up some type of app that they're going to try to put out there that allows people to still send in their, I don't know, suggestions, requests, changes they'd like to see. But it's going to be a complete flop and a failure because who cares? Like the interesting part, the fun part of it was the access to the owner.
Yeah.
Yankee fans don't have access to Hal Steinbrenner, right? The New York Giant fan really doesn't have access to the Tisches or to John Mara. The Knick fan, outside of being at a Knick game or a Ranger game, doesn't have direct access to James Dolan, and on and on and on, right?
Right.
Like, the Net fans have probably never seen Joe Tsai. So here was this owner that suddenly was going to break down the brick wall that was a barrier between fan base and team. And for a month and a half, people loved it, right?
Yeah.
And he was funny and he was enjoying it. But Twitter only has one ending, my friends, and that ending is negative, death, hurt, angst, and other bad things.
But wait a second. Tell me if I'm wrong here, okay? Because, again, sometimes I can be naive. So correct me where I'm mistaken here. If Steve Cohen just tweeted about the Mets and just tweeted about the Citi Field experience, and even during last week's controversy, never said anything about it, didn't tweet, hey, stock jockeys, keep bringing it, because that was a taunting tweet on his part.
Right.
If he didn't do any of that, and sure, people were going to tweet at him about this, but he never mentioned it. He said, look, I'm using Twitter about the Mets. That's my side project. Everything else I'm not going to tweet about.
Yeah, he made a mistake on that. But the other thing is, listen, as soon as other powerful social media people, want to accuse you of something, what are you going to do? Silence sometimes is a death knell, right?
Yeah.
Like, and if you're being, dragged through the mud, public sentiment is against you, and you do have this ability to respond, who wouldn't have responded? You've just accused me of committing A, B, C, D, and E, and now all of a sudden what? You want me to sit back and not respond? Because some people think by not responding, silence is, an admission of guilt.
And if that's the case, then he was hosed either way. If that's the case, then he had no chance once all of this stuff came to light last week. Because I get your point. If he doesn't respond to not just Dave Portnoy, but anybody else, I guess there'd be people saying, oh, I must have done something wrong. But I thought early on he was using social media, even though it annoyed me sometimes, it annoyed you sometimes, I think he was using it in a positive way. And I always thought it was going to be like a brutal 7-game losing streak that was going to cause him to say, I can't deal with the negativity of Met fans. Right. We never got to that. We never even got to a baseball game before it happened.
Nope. Now, I don't want to talk about Robin Hood and that crap anymore, but I was thinking about this over the weekend. How many people, like regular people in our audience, do you think actually invested money in it?
Oh, less than 1%.
In GameStop?
Yeah.
Like, I know there's a vocal minority of people that did have money in it, right? And I get it. But at the end of the day, do you personally know anybody that had money in it and then wasn't able to buy more?
No.
Or got screwed by what took place?
No.
See, neither do I. And and I have no money anyway. But I was trying to think, I recognize that, there's a Pied Piper of social media and very good at what he does. And there are thousands of people that would follow Dave, into a river of molten lava. But when it's all said and done, how many people listening right now, and by the way, I'm not saying that because we don't know anyone, it's not a serious thing. What took place is messed up. It shouldn't be allowed to take place. So I'm not defending what happened because I don't know anyone that got involved with it. But I'm trying to figure out how many people really got involved with it.
Very few people. But you know what? You know what happened? I think there's enough people out there who say the little guy got hosed.
Yes.
Even if I wasn't the little guy, I'm ticked off about this. So I think you have plenty of people that got riled up and mad, even if they weren't directly affected by what happened.
Well, listen, I think we talked about it for two reasons. One, the little guy, and we think we represent the little guy when it comes to the fan base, right?
Right.
We thought the little guy got screwed, so you want to take up the little guy's plight. And then number two, the possibility that the Met owner was somehow complicit or involved.
Sure.
I mean, outside of that, I have no connection to it. Zero.
No, anyone I talk to, like I have friends who like play the stock market, but they didn't play this. They weren't buying GameStop. They weren't shut down from selling. So there's a group of people I know, I'm one of them, who wants nothing to do with the stock market. I don't have interest in it. There are others that do, but I still haven't talked to anybody. And look, I'm sure there are people listening who have, but most of the people I know had no involvement in buying it and getting hosed by Robinhood. But there is that nature of, hey, he's a billionaire and he did wrong, or we think he did wrong and we don't like that. And I think that riles people up.
I do have good news for you, though, if you're a Met fan.
What?
I know what's separating the New York Mets from Bauer. How about that? There is an offer on the table, legitimately, to Trevor Bauer. I know the amount of years the offer's for. I know how many years they want it to be for. And that is the current stalemate between the Mets and Trevor Bauer. You want to think about it for a second?
I'm giving it some thought, yes.
Think about it. 877-337-6666. We'll get all your phone calls. Plus, this past weekend, it happens every single year. It's the one weekend where the honey-do list comes out. There's nothing to watch on TV. There's no real excuse when your wife or your boyfriend or husband or wife or whoever you live with, your significant other, says to you, there's no football today. What are we doing? And we're going to go down that road as well, because I had a couple of buddies of mine call me to walk me through what they had to do this weekend because they didn't have the built-in excuse of, I got to watch football. We'll get into all of it. We'll get into the Mets and Bauer. We'll get into the whole Twitter nonsense with SNY and Steve Cohen. And, of course, it is Super Bowl week. And Tom Brady, I believe today, said he might never retire, which is good news for all of us. We'll explain why right after this on The Fan.